Prometheus's Jesus engineer. Jesus Christ was an engineer sent to Earth 2,000 years ago, according to a concept Ridley Scott discussed, but ultimately cut from the final film. Fans of Prometheus in 2012 theorized the engineer's attempted genocide coincided with the crucifixion of Christ, based on the film's 2,000-year timeline. Director Ridley Scott confirmed this concept in interviews with Movies.com, stating the engineers sent an emissary to Earth to stop humanity's increasing aggression and violence. Scott explained that the engineers viewed humans as misbehaving children, running around with armor and skirts, waging constant wars. The emissary was meant to guide humanity, teaching them about life and creation. Instead, humans crucified him, which seriously angered the engineers and triggered their decision to wipe out humanity entirely. Scott later admitted he and screenwriter Damon Lindelof considered this concept but pulled back, deciding it was too direct for the final film. The theory explains why the disaster on LV-223 occurred exactly 2,000 years before the film's events, and why the engineers turned against their creation. This transforms Prometheus from simple science fiction into a provocative religious allegory about humanity's rejection of salvation, even if the concept remained on the cutting room floor. It connects the Alien franchise to real-world theology and explains the engineers' genocidal rage as divine punishment for humanity's greatest sin. The Candyman Hive. Daniel Robitaille isn't the only Candyman. He's the figurehead of a collective hive of vengeful spirits. The original Candyman in 1992 suggested only Daniel Robitaille existed as the urban legend, the tortured artist murdered for loving a white woman. Fans theorized multiple victims of racial violence could become Candymen, joining a collective consciousness of rage and trauma. Candyman in 2021 confirmed the hive concept explicitly. Souls of murdered black men join the collective when they die at the hands of injustice. Anthony McCoy transforms into Daniel at the film's end, proving the hive's existence and its ability to absorb new members across generations. Co-writer Jordan Peele discussed using the concept to comment on systemic violence and how trauma echoes through time. Each Candyman represents a different historical victim of injustice, their collective pain forming the entity that haunts Cabrini Green. The theory connects the legend to ongoing social issues rather than limiting it to a single ghost story from the past. This modernizes a classic horror villain by connecting it to contemporary social justice themes. It transforms Candyman from single ghost to symbolic representation of collective trauma, making the franchise more culturally relevant and powerful as a meditation on America's racial violence. Final Destination's design. Death itself designs the kills in Final Destination based on survivors' personalities and deepest fears. Fans theorize death targeted victims based on their individual behaviors and psychology rather than creating random accidents. Final Destination 5 in 2011 featured escalating, personalized scenarios that reflected each character's life and personality. Each death reflects the character's lifestyle or personality traits. The compulsive organizer dies in a structured, methodical trap that mirrors her need for control. The theory explains why deaths become increasingly elaborate and personal as each film progresses through the franchise. Death seems to learn from each survivor's actions, adapting its methods accordingly and becoming more creative. Franchise creator Jeffrey Reddick discussed the personalization concept, describing how death targets victims based on their personalities. This transforms random accidents into targeted assassinations, making death a more intelligent and sadistic villain with agency. It explains the franchise's escalating creativity and gives narrative purpose to the elaborate set pieces beyond simple spectacle and gore. Death isn't just killing to restore balance, it's crafting individualized nightmares that reflect each victim's sins and fears. Cabin in the Woods audience theory. The Ancient Ones in Cabin in the Woods aren't gods. They're us, the audience demanding blood and familiar tropes. Fans theorize the facility represents Hollywood studios, and the Ancient Ones represent horror audiences expecting formulaic deaths. Directors Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon confirmed the meta-commentary in interviews, stating this was always the intention from the beginning. The ritual archetypes of jock, scholar, fool, virgin, and whore match horror movie tropes audiences expect to see punished on screen. The facility's betting pool and casual treatment of victims represents film industry practices around greenlighting movies for profit. The film's ending, where the audience rejects the sacrifice and destroys everything, comments on horror audience evolution and rejection of formula. The massive destruction represents what happens when audiences reject formulaic horror and demand something new and innovative. The theory transforms the film from simple parody to industry critique of how horror is manufactured for mass consumption. This elevates Cabin in the Woods from clever horror comedy to definitive genre deconstruction and satire. It explains every element through industry metaphor, making it essential viewing for understanding modern horror's relationship with its audience and commerce. By the way, if you're enjoying this, I create content like this constantly. I'd really appreciate a subscribe. Freddy's victim power absorption. Freddy Krueger doesn't just kill his victims, he steals their dream powers and adds them to his arsenal permanently. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, in 1987, introduced victims with unique dream abilities they could use against Freddy in battle. The theory proposes Freddy gains powers by absorbing victims' dream world capabilities when he kills them in the nightmare realm. In Dream Warriors, the Dream Warriors have special powers derived from their personalities: Kristen's acrobatics, Kincaid's super strength, Taryn's punk warrior skills gained from their deepest selves. Freddy demonstrates these exact abilities in later films after killing them, suggesting direct absorption of their essence. A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, shows Freddy takes souls and becomes more powerful with each kill he commits. Freddy's Dead reveals dream demons gave him dream powers initially. The theory explains escalating absurdity across the franchise. After Dream Warriors, Freddy shapeshifts extensively, uses telekinesis, and creates elaborate scenarios beyond simple nightmares. Each victim's unique nightmare ability becomes part of Freddy's repertoire, making him exponentially more dangerous with time. This rationalizes Freddy's escalating absurdity across the franchise instead of dismissing it as creative excess or tonal shift. It transforms him from simple dream killer to power-hungry collector, making his methods more strategic and terrifying as he deliberately targets victims with useful abilities to steal. Pennywise's true form. Pennywise the Clown isn't just a shapeshifter. He's a cosmic entity from the macroverse outside normal reality and time. Stephen King's novel reveals Pennywise as an ancient entity from the macroverse, a realm beyond human comprehension or physics. Fans theorize the spider form at the novel's climax isn't physical, but a psychic projection the human mind creates to comprehend the incomprehensible. The 2017 to 2019 films hint at the cosmic origin through the Deadlights visualization, those orange lights that drive people insane with knowledge. The theory explains why Pennywise appears as individual fears. He feeds on belief and emotion, not flesh or blood. The ritual of Chud in the novel confirms he's one of many eaters of worlds that consume realities across the multiverse. Director Andy Muschietti confirmed the cosmic elements for the films, aiming to stay faithful to King's vision. The theory connects it to King's larger multiverse, including the Dark Tower series and shared mythology. This elevates Pennywise from scary clown to cosmic horror entity, explaining his powers and motivations beyond simple predation on children. It connects it to King's larger literary universe and justifies the convoluted mythology around the character's origins and abilities. The Babadook's depression manifestation. The Babadook isn't a monster. It's a mother's clinical depression made manifest in physical form through grief. Fans theorize the Babadook represents Amelia's unresolved grief and depression following her husband's death during childbirth. Director Jennifer Kent confirmed the monster symbolizes mental illness, stating this was always the film's core metaphor from conception. The Babadook's basement confinement at the film's end represents living with depression, acknowledging mental illness as ongoing struggle. The Mr. Babadook book appears as Amelia's psyche, externalizing her trauma into something her son can see and fear. The theory explains the monster's behavior as depression symptoms: isolation, anger, exhaustion, and inability to connect with loved ones or function. Kent discussed how love makes the monster manageable, suggesting that support systems help people live with mental illness. This transforms a supernatural horror into psychological allegory, making the film more emotionally resonant for audiences dealing with loss. It demonstrates how horror can address real mental health issues through metaphor, increasing the film's cultural impact beyond simple scares and jump scares. Jigsaw's medical philosophy. Jigsaw's traps aren't random torture devices. They're based on actual medical triage principles and diagnostic logic from his background. Fans theorize John Kramer's traps follow medical diagnostic logic given his background and relationship with Dr. Gordon and his colleagues. Lawrence Gordon's survival proves medical professionals can understand the game's underlying philosophy and design principles. Each trap tests a specific psychological or physical condition: willpower, sacrifice, teamwork, pain tolerance, appreciation for life. Amanda's traps were designed to be unwinnable, violating Kramer's medical ethics of giving patients a chance at survival. The theory explains why some traps have clear escape routes while others seem impossible. Amanda corrupted the philosophy with revenge. This transforms Jigsaw from sadist to twisted philosopher, making his methods more comprehensible and disturbing simultaneously through logic. It explains the franchise's internal logic and provides framework for analyzing each trap's design purpose beyond spectacle and gore. Art the Clown's immortality. Art the Clown isn't just a killer, he's a demonic entity that cannot be destroyed by conventional means or violence. Fans theorized Art is supernatural after his resurrection in Terrifier 2 in 2022 following his apparent death. Director Damien Leone confirmed Art is demonic in nature, but hasn't revealed his complete true nature yet for future films. The theory suggests Art feeds on trauma and fear, making him stronger with each kill he commits against victims. Art's ability to return from decapitation and dismemberment proves his non-human status definitively beyond simple slasher resilience. Leone has dismissed fan theories about Art being Sienna's father. This distinguishes Art from other slashers by making his supernatural nature explicit rather than ambiguous or implied. It creates franchise-long mystery and explains his increasing power, making him more threatening than human killers who can simply be stopped. The Witch's powers origins. The witch in the VV-itch gains her powers from supernatural baptism, not birth or genetic inheritance. Fans theorize Thomasin becomes a witch through pact with dark forces, not genetic predisposition or family curse. The film's ending shows her baptism into the coven through blood ritual in the forest clearing at night. Director Robert Eggers confirmed the supernatural elements are literally real, not psychological projections or period hysteria from isolation. The theory explains the family's gradual destruction as targeted corruption by the coven, recruiting new members for their ranks. The witch's powers manifest through ritual performance, not innate ability passed down bloodlines across generations. The goat Black Phillip is the devil, speaking with a genuine voice rather than being a delusion. This transforms the film from ambiguous psychological horror to explicit supernatural tragedy grounded in period beliefs about witchcraft. It explains the methodical destruction of the family and Thomasin's final choice as liberation rather than corruption, reframing the ending's meaning entirely. Hannibal Lecter's Memory Palace. Hannibal Lecter's perfect memory isn't photographic. It's a meticulously constructed memory palace using ancient mnemonic techniques. Fans theorized Lecter's memory techniques come from ancient mnemonic methods, rather than natural ability or genius alone. Thomas Harris's novels describe Lecter using the method of loci to organize memories spatially in mental architecture. The memory palace allows instant recall of sensory details, scents, sounds, and images by mentally walking through constructed spaces. The theory explains how Lecter reconstructs crime scenes with supernatural accuracy despite not being present at the events. Each memory is stored in a specific room in his mental architecture, accessible through visualization and mental discipline. The books suggest he learned these techniques from texts he studied while institutionalized. This method is historically accurate and used by memory champions today for competition and mental athletics. This grounds Lecter's abilities in real psychology, rather than making him superhuman or mystical beyond human capability. It explains his precision and adds intellectual depth, making him more believable and terrifying as a villain who combines brilliance with monstrosity through discipline. The Empty Man's transmission. The Empty Man isn't a virus. It's a thought-form entity transmitted through belief itself, not physical contact or airborne pathogens. Fans theorize the entity spreads through understanding its nature, not bodily fluids or airborne transmission like traditional diseases. The film's opening shows the original Tibetan entity forming from collective belief of the explorers in the mountains. The theory suggests the Pontifex Institute created a tulpa, a thought form, that became real through focused belief and ritual. James's investigation inadvertently completes the ritual by learning the truth and fully comprehending the entity's nature. The entity exists between thought and reality, requiring belief to manifest in physical form and affect the world. The 3-day ritual isn't magic, it's psychological priming for belief to take hold in the victim's mind completely. Director David Pryor discussed the film's concept as idea-based horror, where beliefs spread like contagion rather than through biology. The ending suggests James becomes the new vessel because he fully comprehends the entity's nature and origin story. This explains why information suppression is the only containment method that works against it effectively. This redefines contagion horror by making information itself the vector of infection, rather than blood or bites. It connects to modern fears about viral misinformation, and demonstrates how belief systems create reality, elevating the film from standard horror to philosophical meditation on consciousness. Get Out's sunken place. The sunken place in Get Out represents the marginalization of black voices in American society and cinema. Fans theorized the hypnotic state symbolized more than just mind control, connecting it to systemic oppression and silencing. Director Jordan Peele confirmed the sunken place is a metaphor for the system that suppresses the freedom of black people and many outsiders. Peele explained on social media how marginalized people are silenced by the system, regardless of how loudly they protest. In interviews with the Los Angeles Times, Peele revealed the sunken place specifically represents the prison industrial complex and the lack of black representation in film. He discussed how it relates to black horror audiences who have historically been marginalized in the genre. He described it as a metaphor for the black horror audience, a loyal fan base who comes to movies knowing they're the ones who will die first. The cotton Chris uses to block the hypnosis has been widely interpreted as referencing slavery, as he picks it from the chair's upholstery to free himself. This transforms Get Out from simple thriller to profound commentary on racial oppression and cultural appropriation in America. It explains why the film resonated so powerfully with audiences in 2017, becoming a cultural phenomenon and awards contender. Midsommar's Fairy Tale. Midsommar isn't a horror film. It's a macabre fairy tale with a predetermined happy ending for the protagonist. Fans theorized Dani was always meant to become May Queen based on visual clues throughout the film's runtime. Director Ari Aster confirmed in interviews with IndieWire that he never talked about Midsommar as a horror film during production. Aster stated it was always a macabre fairy tale from the very beginning of writing the screenplay. Visual elements include Dani's room poster, artwork showing a bear with a girl, and an opening tapestry that foreshadow events. Dani looks like the blonde-haired, green-eyed cult members, suggesting she was racially selected from the beginning. Pella targeted Dani and Christian deliberately, apparently believing Dani would become part of the commune. The film ends with Dani smiling, having found a new family that validates her emotions, unlike Christian's neglect. This transforms Midsommar from straightforward horror into a twisted empowerment narrative about escaping toxic relationships through ritualistic violence. It explains the film's bright daylight aesthetic and why audiences debate whether Dani's fate is liberation or damnation. Cloverfield monster size. The creature in Cloverfield is just a baby, explaining its confused, destructive behavior throughout New York. Fans theorized the monster's erratic actions suggested it was a juvenile separated from its parent rather than calculated attack. Producer J.J. Abrams confirmed this theory, stating the Clover creature was a baby during the 2008 film's events. Abrams explained this is why the one seen in the Cloverfield paradox is so much bigger, revealing the true scale. The baby theory explains why the creature seems frightened and lashes out randomly, rather than hunting strategically or with purpose. It's not attacking humanity deliberately, it's a terrified infant destroying everything because it's lost, injured, and confused. The smaller parasites falling from its body are like fleas on a dog, not intentional weapons deployed tactically. This revelation makes the creature sympathetic rather than purely villainous, recontextualizing the entire film's destruction. The military's attempts to kill it are like attacking a scared child who doesn't understand what's happening around it. This transforms Cloverfield from simple monster movie into tragedy about a lost creature killed for being in the wrong place. It explains the creature's seemingly random path of destruction through Manhattan and adds emotional depth to the found footage horror. If you liked what you saw, think about subscribing to stay updated with every upload. Thanks for watching.